As sports history fans, we often reminisce about the legends. Willis Reed limping on to the NBA Finals court, Curt Schilling's bloody sock, Kerry Strug's courageous dismount, and so many more. These moments often define sports history. But what about the countless injuries that did not become legends, or careers that were derailed due to inadequate care? That's where this episode's sponsor comes in. Introducing to you, ILP Sports Consultants, your trusted sports injury partner, available 24/7. Brian Maelli at ILP Sports Consultants has over 20 years of experience in the orthopedic and sports medicine industry, and he has worked with athletes across the gamut, from youth to amateurs, professionals, in almost every sport played in the United States of America, accommodating athletes at every stage of their career. This adaptability ensures that ILP services are perfectly tailored to your skill level, no matter where you are in your athletic journey. With ILP, you are in control. Choose the steps that matter most to you. Diagnosis, treatment plan, recovery, or the whole journey. ILP services are tailored to your unique needs. Rushing for care is a common pitfall, leading to future problems. ILP Sports Consultants helps you make the right decisions, ensuring that you receive timely and safe care. And here's a bonus. Brian hosts the Injured List podcast, sharing insights and athlete stories you won't want to miss. Whether you're a concerned parent or grandparent, or an athlete yourself seeking guidance, ILP Sports Consultants is your beacon of hope in sports injury management. Visit ilpsports.com today. That's the letters ilpsports.com. ILP Sports Consultants, where your well-being is the priority and your recovery is the mission. Choose ILP Sports Consultants for a healthier sports journey, helping you get back in the game the smart way.
This is Charles Slavic of the Society for American Baseball Research, and you are listening to the Total Sports Recall podcast, a part of the Sports History Network. Now, here's your host, HARV ARONSON.
Welcome to the Total Sports Recall podcast. This is Harv Anderson, your host, and I previously interviewed North Hills High School Hall of Fame inductee and former University of Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker Steve Fidel. And once again, the intro to the show was the North Hills fight song. It was used for this podcast because in this episode, I have a special guest who also starred for North Hills football, James Cassandro. North Hills High School plays in the Western Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic League, or the WPIAL, and our guest is James Cassandro, who played for North Hills and when they were in the WPIAL championship in 1981, which the team lost but came back the following season and won the title. James was a 3-year starter at fullback for North Hills, but also spent one season as a kicker and played defensive tackle. After graduating from North Hills, James furthered his education and football career at the California University of Pennsylvania, where on the gridiron he was a 3-year starter and lettered in all 4 years at the position of fullback. In his junior and senior years, James Cassandro was named to the All-Conference team, taking home the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference Player of the Week at one point in his career at California. After college, James coached football for 33 years, 29 of those at his alma mater, North Hills. James also served as head coach of the school's varsity women's lacrosse team for 11 years. James remained a teacher at North Hills for 35 years until his retirement in June of this year. James, I'd like to welcome you to the show, and as I said to Steve before you, I'm honored not just to have a fellow North Hills graduate on the show, but one who shined on the football field as you did. Thank you for joining the show for this episode. You there, James?
Thank you, Harv. I'm excited to get the ball rolling.
All
yes,
right.
Yes, I'm excited, Harv.
Well, James, it's an ironic twist, but here we are, alums from the same high school, but rivals when it comes to college football. I graduated from another state school just up the road from California University of Pennsylvania, Slippery Rock University of Pennsylvania. And it turns out, I found out today, our two schools are playing each other this weekend. The Rock has yet to lose. It's ranked 7th in the country, while the Vulcans are 5-1 with a 4-game winning streak and ranked 22nd What do you make of this matchup? And also, when I graduated, the Rock was still being called Slippery Rock State College. When you left, had California gained their university status yet?
Yes. My freshman year, we changed over from a state college to a university. And my degree came from California University of Pennsylvania.
And what about this weekend? Slippery Rock versus California. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm excited. I've only been back to one game since I graduated. Last football season, I went to see a former player of mine, Timmy Sudo, who played at Fairmont State. Fairmont State was playing California, so I went up to the university to watch him. But that was the first game I was ever back to see since I graduated. So I haven't been following them too closely, but I'm always rooting for the Vulcans. I know they had about a 10-year span where they were, as good as anybody in Division II football. But I understand Slippery Rock's been having a pretty good season, so I'll be rooting for the Vulcans. But who knows how the game's going to go.
Well, it should be good. I didn't realize that they were having such a good season, and Slippery Rock has been perennial the last few years as far as winning that conference and then getting to the NCAA Division II playoffs, and they've gone pretty deep sometimes. I'm hoping this will be the year that they get further. I do watch them by streaming them. I've followed them since I left. These past few years, Slippery Rock's football team has experienced enormous success. And this year, like I said, they're undefeated. They're ranked in the top 10. But obviously, you played against Slippery Rock. Any games against Slippery Rock that stand out for you when you were there?
Yeah, I recall one. It was up their place. I had one of my better games. I was more of a fullback in college and more of a passing type offensive scheme. So our head coach was a former quarterback at California University, Jeff Petrucci. So he liked to throw the ball, and I was not much of a receiver, but I was a good blocker. So I was in there. I got a lot of playing time as a freshman, and then my sophomore, junior, and senior year, I became a starter at the position. But I was mainly a blocking back and mainly a pass blocking back for my majority of my career. But I do remember a pretty good comeback against Slippery Rock. It wasn't my freshman year either. My sophomore or junior year, we were down and made a nice comeback. And don't remember the score, but I just remember being down and it was a heck of a comeback, and we ended up being victorious at the end. So we played them all 4 years, obviously being in the same conference, and the games were always tight and they were always competitive.
Yeah, I mean that whole conference was pretty competitive. A lot of the schools are very good. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to a little bit now for high school football. North Hills Indians, they have not won any titles in quite a long time. Their more recent teams have achieved the level of success. They haven't achieved the level of success the squads did when you played, although 1987 was a huge year for the school. But when we'll talk about that season a little bit. But tell our listeners what it was like playing in 2 consecutive conference title games like you did, winning it in 1982.
Yeah, it was very exciting. As a sophomore, that was our first time heading to the WPL championship game. We ran a 3-back set, and I was the fullback in that backfield set called the Wishbone. And it was a very huge honor for me to even break the lineup with the team that we had. But we ended up playing Mount Lebanon in the WPL championship game, and they were a powerhouse. Art Walker Jr.'s dad was the head coach at Mount Lebanon, and Wow. They were super strong in the late 70s all the way through the mid 80s, and we ended up playing them, and they took it to us pretty good. I believe the score was 35-6 or 35-7. Wow. That year, the WPL championship game, believe it or not, was played at South Stadium, which is now known as Couple Stadium, and that's where we played our WPL championship game. And you brought up Mark Kelso before the show when we were talking. Mark, I remember him coming back. He was in college, and he come back for that game, and he went to William & Mary, and he come back, and I remember him being at that game and on our sidelines and rooting us on. So that was, we took that one on the chin. That was a tough one to swallow, but we had a pretty good team returning. So the following year, which would be my junior year, we had a lot of underclassmen starting on that team, and we limped into the playoffs. We We're 6-4. We just barely snuck in. North Allegheny was the powerhouse that year. They were the number one team in the state. They were unscored upon up until week 10, till we played them in the regular season. And they were just basically annihilating every opponent that they had. So we each went into the playoffs. They were top seed. We were bottom seed. They crushed their first opponent, which I believe was Hempfield High School, like 49-0, and we just barely got by Connellsville High School, 14-0. So we met again in the semifinals, and we beat North Allegheny 7-3 down at Ambridge Stadium, Mo Rubenstein Stadium. So we beat them, and then we played in the WPL championship against Butler High School. So all these teams I'm mentioning, Hempfield used to be a powerhouse. Connellsville used to be a powerhouse. Butler used to be a powerhouse. None of those squads are they don't have the clout that they used to. But back when I played, they were all the great teams. So my junior year, we played Butler at Pitt Stadium. So there were a few years in there that the WPL championship games were played at Old Pitt Stadium. So we beat Butler 9-0. And then we had a great team returning for my senior year, which were basically all underclassmen. And we end up losing to North Allegheny in the semifinals. And I can't remember, but I believe North Allegheny ended up winning the WPL championship game that year. But
wow,
it was nice. It was sort of, North Hills had some really good teams in the late 70s and early 80s, but none of them were able to make it to the championship game. So we were able to give Coach McCurry his first WPL championship. So we just had a little reunion at my house with that team.
No kidding.
In the summer.
Wow.
Yeah, like June, I invited all the former players from that 1982 team over to my house. I think I had 21 guys. Coach McCurry, Coach Marziel. There were 3 or 4 coaches that were able to make it too. So it was sort of nice to get everyone together. I found all their old jersey numbers. We have a room down at Mortarelli Stadium with all our old uniforms in it that nobody uses. So I got everyone their old game jersey and was able to give them their jersey. And it was a nice evening.
You got photos from that?
I do. Yeah, I do have some photos.
Oh, you're going to have to share those with me. I would love to see that. That must have been awesome.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share them with you. It was a blast. We had a really good time.
Cool.
I had guys flying in from Houston. Our safety lives in Houston. Our tackle lives in Baltimore. He flew up. Our safety flew up. Our tight end and defensive back lives in Virginia. He flew up. So we had 3 guys travel pretty good distance. So it was a great night.
Oh, that must have been a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. A lot of stories. So what I did also is I went down Mortarelli and I got our old film projector, the old reel-to-reel film projector, and I got our WPL championship game. We have a big cabinet with all of the games, and we went in my garage. I shut the garage door, turned off all the lights, got Coach McCurry a big fancy chair to sit in. He sat in a chair and he ran the projector with the clicker button, just the sign of that projector, click, 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 and rewinding it and it going off the reels, and we had to stop and turn the lights on and put it back on track. It was just, it flew me back, 35, 40 years. And I just looked around. It was so neat to see all these players, and it was a really neat moment.
I was just going to say, you guys must have felt like you were back in the locker room watching film.
We did. It's exactly what it felt like. And Coach McCurry's old saying always was, somebody would miss a block, and he knew who missed it, but he wanted that person to admit it was them. So he would say, who is that? Who missed that block? And the kid would say, me. And he would say, who the hell's me? There's 52 me's in this room. So, we set him up so he'd say that again, and it was just a lot of fun.
Well, you may have to talk to Coach McCurry for me, because I actually would send him an email from that directory. I try to get him on the show, because I would love to have him on the show to talk about that 1987 team.
I can almost guarantee I could get him to do it for you. He and I are pretty tight, and he's not real good with the technology, so he might not answer emails and text messages, but I'll call him and ask him if he'd do it for you.
Yeah, I mean, you could come on the show with him if you like. Put the both of you on at the same time. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah. So that 1982 championship team, they won the title. Who, I think you may have mentioned it, but who'd they defeat to take that crown? 1982.
We beat Butler High School 9-0.
Butler.
We scored a field
Okay.
goal. We scored a touchdown, missed the extra point, and then later in the game we kicked a field goal.
Excellent. So you indicate, or I indicated in the beginning intro to you that you were a fullback, but you also served time as a kicker, and you also played defensive tackle. You went on to play fullback in college, but would you have preferred another position, or was running the ball or blocking for other runners more natural for you?
I enjoyed running the ball, and I enjoyed blocking. One of the halfbacks for our team was able to be at that reunion a couple months ago. And, we joked about it. I said, everything you were is because of me, because I block for you and stuff like that. But I enjoy blocking, but I also enjoy getting the ball. And I felt like that was my natural position. I wasn't a 4.4 40 guy. I was more of a 4.8 40 guy. And so that was my position. I was more like a guard in the backfield in college. We did run the option with me for some reason. I am not an option back, but I was the lone running back in our backfield, and I don't feel like I was utilized the right way. I'm not an outside runner, but that's where they ran me. So I did what the coach said.
So how much kicking did you actually do?
So in high school, we talked about this. So Coach McCurry was the one that introduced me at my Hall of Fame banquet. And he claimed that I asked him to kick. I did not want to be a kicker. I had no interest in kicking. I never kicked up to that point. I think I was jagging around before practice the one day, and he come out and must have seen me kick, and I must have done it better than the other kids that were kicking. I don't remember who our kicker was before me, but I end up being our kicker too. So my senior year we kicked, and a funny story was we're playing Kiski, and my mother was very particular with the way we looked. Our shoes always had to be polished. I remember she had this little, almost looked like a little bottle with a sponge on the end, and she would always make sure our shoes were white whenever we went out. And I had white. We wore white shoes back then, white spot built, but my kicking shoe was black. We got it. I don't know where we got it. I think Coach McCurry got it for me somewhere, but it was black. And she hated the fact that this shoe was, I had one shoe on that was white, and the other one that was on was black, and I only wore it whenever I was kicking. So she made me bring it home, and she polished it. She put white shoe polish on it so that they'd both be white.
Match.
So we're playing Kiski, and I blamed this all on my shoe. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure it was me and not my shoe. But we're playing Kiski in the rain, and the shoe starts to, all the white stuff starts to come off, and it was real slippery, the shoe polish. So I missed like 3 extra points that night. And I was a pretty good kicker. I mean, I was a straight-on kicker. I had a square-toed shoe, and most of them went through when I kicked them. But that night I missed like 3, and I blamed it on my mother polishing my shoe because when I kicked the ball, the white stuff was slimy, and that's why I said I missed it. So I wiped it all off on the tip, and I left the shoe white, but I left the tip, the black leather part, so it wouldn't be slippery anymore.
That's hilarious.
Kicked all that year. We're going down, and we're playing North Allegheny. We're both pretty good teams. I think it decided who had home field advantage in the playoffs. It's 0-0. It's at Martorelli. It's old Martorelli before they put plastic on the field. It's old muddy Martorelli. By week 10, it's just a quagmire. And it's raining. It rained all week, and it's just as muddy as can be. And it's 0-0 with 16 seconds left. And my senior year, and I missed the previous 4 games because of an injury. So I'm in the huddle, and Coach McCurry calls a timeout. It's 4th and goal from the 20-yard line, something like that. And he comes out and he says, called me Kaz, that's my name. He said, Kaz, I think we're going to kick it. And you think you can make it? I said, Coach, I haven't kicked in 4 weeks. I don't think I can make it. He said, well, we're kicking it. I said, really? So kid ran out my shoe, or he threw it out. I can't remember. So they run out my shoe. I sit down in the mud and put my shoe on. I'm thinking, I don't even know if I practiced kicking in the last month. So I put the shoe on. They snapped the ball, and I kick it with 16 seconds left, and we beat North Allegheny 3-0. And
wow.
I'm more well known for my kicking. I remember like the years after that, people say, "Oh yeah, you're the kicker from North Hills." I said, "Well, actually, I was a running back for North Hills, but I kicked on the side. I was more
Yeah.
remembered from my kicking than I was from my running back duties." But it
Do you
actually
have
got
any?
me out of a going through a stop sign ticket once. So
Oh
I'll
no,
take
are you
it.
serious?
Yeah, I was heading
Do you
back
have
to
any?
college, and I used to
Uh-huh.
drive back a girl who lived up by Northway Mall actually, and I went through a stop sign,
Okay.
and I got pulled over by the Ross police, and he looked at my license. It was just the year prior, it was my freshman year in college, and
Uh-huh.
he said, I remember, were you the guy that kicked the field goal against NA? And I said,
Oh
yeah,
my
he,
God,
he let me go. So
that's
paid off.
hilarious. So,
So, and I
defensive
did play
tackle.
some
You said you.
defensive tackle.
Yeah. Any sacks?
What's that?
Any sacks as defensive
No,
tackle?
no. I
No.
remember chasing quarterbacks around. I was more of a sub on defense. So
Yeah.
what would happen is we'd kick off. I'd go over and I'd take my shoe off. They'd have a guy to go in and play, and then I'd go in for him. And then, since I played offense and kicked off, I didn't get a whole lot of time at defensive tackle. Probably 10 or 12 snaps a game at tackle.
Yeah.
I was aggressive. I'd run up the field and they'd trap me a lot. So Coach Nauman would get mad at me a lot because I'd get trapped. So I wasn't a great defensive tackle. I just caused chaos
Any
in there
kicking
running around.
records? School kicking records? You hold any?
Um, no, I don't hold any kicking records.
Yeah.
Of course, when I came back and coached for Coach McCurry, he made me the
Mm-hmm.
kicking coach, even though I didn't want to do that. I had to help out with
Yeah.
that amongst being a running back coach
Yeah.
and some defensive back coach. So I would always tell the kickers that I held records, but I didn't hold any records. I told them I held this
Yeah.
record. I told them I never missed an extra point or never missed a field goal. They can't look that stuff up. It's not anywhere. So as far as they know,
Right.
I hold a whole bunch of records.
Hey, that's all that matters. California had some pretty good success there. Any thoughts of ever turning pro or walk on somewhere, perhaps?
No, I'm 5'7", 205 pounds in college. Like I said, I didn't have blazing speed. I just played with a lot of heart and desire, and I loved the sport. And I never had any aspirations of playing pro football. It was very realistic. My dad did. My dad always, dreamt of me playing for the Steelers or whatever, but I don't think he knew what a pro athlete, what it needed to be a pro athlete. I did not have athleticism. But
Yeah.
I would dream about
Well,
it playing in the backyard like any other kid. But I'm pretty realistic when it comes to things. Sometimes too realistic, and I never had any aspirations. To be honest with you, when I went to college, it was sort of a letdown from North Hills. North Hills back in the '80s was, we were the king of football. There was
sure,
nothing.
sure.
Nothing better than North Hills football in the '80s and even in the early
Uh-huh.
'90s and late '70s, '80s, and early '90s. I mean, we were the thing. And when I
Yeah.
went to California University, I didn't really know any better. I went there because I wanted to be a technology education teacher, and
Hmm.
that was the only school around that had it. And they also had football, and so I played, and it was a letdown. When I went there, we had probably 1/10 the fans we had at North Hills. The band
Hmm.
wasn't as good, and the level of competition was better. It was better football than I thought, but it just
Yeah.
never had that same excitement to me as
Hmm.
playing at Martirelli Stadium on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And I've
And
talked to friends that went to Michigan. I have my good friend of
uh-huh.
mine who was a person I was going to recommend you, TJ Osmond. He
Yeah.
had played in 4 Rose Bowls, and he said the
Uh-huh.
same thing. He says at North Hills, it just nothing ever had that same intensity, and it meant as much to me as playing at North
Yeah.
Hills High School.
Yeah. And talking to Steve last weekend, 2 points. He was talking about playing in the NFL, and he said it's tough. He says you've got to be
Hmm.
mentally tough, physically tough.
Yeah.
He said some of these young guys aren't ready for that. And the second point I was telling him as well is, North Hills football. I clearly remember every Friday going out, Martirelli Stadium, fourth quarter. I don't know if they still
Yeah.
do it. The 4 fingers up, chanting for. It was so much fun. And we lived
So
for
much
Friday
fun.
nights. Yeah.
Yep.
So my college alma mater had 6 players who got to the NFL, including Greg Patera, Chuck Sanders, and a friend of mine while I was there, Rick Porter, made the NFL. For your alma mater, I was able to find 11 names. Tommy Campbell, Brendan Fulmer, Eric Cush, Kevin McCabe, Rontez Miles, C.J. Goodwin, Eric Harris, Perry Kemp, Wes Cates, Terry O'Shea, and Dewey McDonald. You know any of those guys?
Yes. So Terry O'Shea and I went in together. He played at Seton LaSalle, and we were same class. We played all 4 years together. He was a tight end, pretty good tight end, probably 6'5", 240 back then, which is pretty big.
Yeah.
And, he had a nice career. He ended up redshirting, so he played 1 year after I was done. And then you said Brendan Fulmer as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brendan Fulmer was our quarterback my sophomore and junior year. He was from California High School, which is right in town there. And then you have a Kevin Russell on there? I didn't hear you say Kevin Russell.
No, I didn't
Kevin
see
Russell
that one.
was the quarterback my freshman year, and he played for the Kansas City Chiefs. So there's actually one more there. He had all the passing records up until California sort of changed gears a little bit. They went more with the Division I transfer type of kids probably 10, 12 years ago. And they had a quarterback come in, Portis, and I think he broke everyone's records. But I played, 2 of my quarterbacks were quarterbacks that played in the NFL, so that's not too bad.
Excellent. Well, what do you remember most about playing for California, James?
I guess what I remember most is, I guess our freshman year we won the PSAC. We beat IUP, which I didn't know any of the rivalries. I knew a little bit about the PSAC, but I never really, I paid a little bit of attention to college football growing up. I wasn't a diehard Pitt or diehard Penn State fan. If it was on TV, I'd watch it. So I really didn't know a whole lot. I didn't know the difference between Division I, Division II, and Division III football. Not like kids do now. I mean, kids know all that stuff. I just never paid attention. I was too busy doing other things than to pay attention to that. So when I went there, I didn't know who our rival was. I didn't know who we haven't beaten years. So I go in sort of blindly, and we haven't beaten IUP in years and years, and we end up beating them to get first place in the Western Conference, and then we played the winner of the Eastern Conference, which was Bloomsburg, and we ended up beating them. And so my freshman year, we won the PSAC, which was exciting. So I'd have to say that was my most memorable moment at California University.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I'm just going to throw this out there, but when I was at Slippery Rock, and twice we did this. The second time I was the sports broadcaster for the radio station, got to call the football game. But the University of Michigan invited Slippery Rock up to play in their stadium. It was called Band Day, and we got to play against one of our own schools, but they wanted us to come in and play in their stadium. I don't know if you've ever been in the University of Michigan stadium, but most stadiums you walk in, you're at the bottom level and you walk up to your seat. This one's like a big hole in the ground. So when I walked up to the stadium and you walk in the front gate, you're already at the top of the stadium. So I walked in and I was like, holy crap. And you look down, it's just this tremendous stadium. And I think it seats like 106,000 now. And we had 30 or 40,000 people there, and it looked like it was empty. It was crazy. It was so much fun, though. And very cool stadium.
Who did Slippery Rock play? Do you remember?
Wayne State. I think it was Wayne State both times. Yeah. The first game I went up.
You said a memorable moment. You said a memorable moment when you said Wayne State. I'm pretty sure that it was Cal and not Teal. So we played them, and we parked our bus out on the street for Wayne State, and our bus got broken into, and they stole all our stuff. So I do remember that.
Kidding.
So that's another memorable moment.
Gosh.
That was Wayne State.
Well, I know when we went up there, and the first time I went up as a student, and our student body went up there and went in droves, and I believe Ann Arbor was ready to throw us out of the town afterwards because all the students did was hang out all night and drink all night and party, and it was hilarious. And so they didn't like us too much. But the second time around, I went as the sports broadcaster for the football team, and they put us in the media booth, and it was like being in a professional booth. It was so cool. It was a big step up
Oh,
from
nice.
doing our little radio station stuff at Slippery Rock.
Yeah.
That was a
Oh,
lot
I
of fun.
bet. It sounds like it.
Once you finished playing football, you became a coach, as we indicated. So, what sticks
Yeah.
out the most for you regarding coaching football?
Well, I remember getting my first teaching job. My dad was a steel salesman in Pittsburgh, and I was working out in the yard, moving steel around or doing something. I remember him walking out and saying, "There, you got that job at Greenville High School." They must have called home, and then my mom called my dad. It was before cell phones. My mom called my dad. My dad walked out, and he said, "Well, you got that job at Greenville High School. Do you want to continue working here?" I said, "Well, I'll finish my shift today, but no, I don't. I have to prepare to be a teacher." So I remember getting my job at Greenville, and then my soon-to-be wife, we drove up. We checked out the town. I didn't know too much about it, and I got offered the head coaching job for the 7th and 8th grade team at Greenville High School. And the coach at that point's name was Bob Stone, and he was a legendary coach for that school, just like Coach McCurry is for North Hills. And he was there 100 years, had thousands of wins, just an unbelievable coach, unbelievable program, and just did a great job. So I met him, and we sort of hit it off. And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to be your 7th and 8th grade coach." So I come back, and I'm talking to one of my classmates from North Hills, Mike Miller. He played at Delaware. And he said, there's a college in that town called Teal College. One of our classmates went there. And I said, "No, I didn't know that. I didn't know where Teal College was." So he said, "Why don't you coach there instead of middle school, instead of junior high?" So I said, "Okay, next time up." My wife and I, we drove up, checked out Teal College, and I'm walking through, checking out the school, and I'm in the gymnasium of the college, and a guy's walking through with a box, and he said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "My name's Jim Cassandro. I'm getting married next week or next month, whatever it was. And I just thought I'd check out the college, played football here, did this." He said, "Well, I'm the new head football coach. My name's Dale Liston. I just moved here from Wichita, Kansas. I'm going to be the new head coach at Teal College." I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, I'm looking to build my staff." So I went up and met with him, and we talked, and he offered me a job. So then now I had to go back and tell Bob Stone from Greenville that I didn't want his job as junior high coach. And so I drove over to see him and told him, and he said, I don't think you're making a big mistake." He said, "Teal College, they haven't been good in years, and they don't even have their own field and blah blah blah." I said, "Yeah, I know, but I think I'd rather coach college than high school or than middle school." So I went on to Teal College, and I got married immediately following my honeymoon. We moved up to Greenville, and I started coaching there. We were 0-9 my first year. I remember I've heard people tell stories. We lined the field, we watered the field. Honest to God, we lined the field, we watered the field. We put grass seed on it. We did all that stuff that people talk about you doing whenever you start, at a small school, and we did it. We lined the field. They had an old yellow Jeep. I remember we'd bring the supplies out. We'd put the paint in that little machine, and we put the lines on the practice field. It was an amazing opportunity for me. I did coach there for 4 years. Each year we got better, but it was an experience. I enjoyed it.
I had heard of Teal, so it wasn't like an obscure school. I mean, I definitely heard of Teal when I was in college in my younger days, so it's not like it's an unknown school. But you also coached lacrosse, and you, I believe, coached the women's team.
I did.
So what were your most successful girls' teams that you coached as a lacrosse coach?
My most successful team was this past season.
Okay.
We had a tremendous group of girls. They overachieved. I sort of went about things a little bit differently than I normally have because I knew this was my last year. I sort of probably a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more easygoing than I normally was. But I got into coaching the girls lacrosse because my daughter joined lacrosse, and she played in 7th and 8th grade, I believe. And when ninth grade came along, she was now in high school, and the coach quit right before the season, or maybe a month or so before the season. And I remember my daughter calling me. They had a parents' meeting, and she called me and said, "Dad, we're not gonna have a team this year because we don't have a coach. So you coach." I said, "Carly," I said, I don't know anything about lacrosse. I go to your games. I don't have any idea what you guys are doing. The ref always blows the whistle. I have no idea why they're blowing the whistle." She said, "Oh, Dad, you coach football. It's similar." I said, "No, it's not similar." I said, I don't know anything about it. I wouldn't feel comfortable. So she was disappointed, and I said no. So like a week later, they still didn't have a coach. Now it was only like 3 weeks before the season starts. I end up the head principal at the time, the athletic director, and our superintendent come down to my room, my classroom at the high school, and basically tricked me into being the girls' head coach. I said, "We're not going to have anybody. The season's going to be canceled. We'll do whatever you want, whatever you need. We'll get you a new uniform. We'll do this. We'll do that." So I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And when they left, I'm thinking, why did I just agree to this for? Why would I ever do that? I know nothing about this sport. So about 3 weeks before our first game, and I hit the YouTube channel super hard, watched as many videos. I couldn't even tell you at that point how many kids were on a field, how many players were supposed to be on the field at a time. So I had a lot to learn, but it was fun and it was exciting. I hired a girl that actually played at Slippery Rock, Emily Crawford. She played at Slippery Rock's club team, and she played at North Hills, and she was a long-term sub at one of our elementary schools. So I hired her as my assistant, and together it was like the perfect combination. I know how to coach kids. I know how to motivate kids, but I obviously didn't know anything about the sport. She was a young girl. She was 20. She didn't know how to coach yet. She didn't know how to motivate kids yet, but she knew the sport. So us combined, it was like it was just a very harmonious, I don't even know if that's a word. It was just everything seemed to work really well that first year. We made the playoffs. We lost to Bethel Park, but it was just a really magical year. I had a lot of fun. I went in thinking, am I even going to like coaching girls? I ended up liking coaching lacrosse more than I liked coaching football. I just enjoyed it. They smelled better. They had better temperaments after games, when they lost or won. It was just, the whole thing was just a very welcoming moment in my career that I needed. Because football, I started playing when I was 6. I coached right out of college. I've been doing the same thing. I go to a clinic and I'd listen to the same clinic talk a year after year after year, and I didn't feel like I was learning or growing. Whereas lacrosse, I go to a clinic and said, "Oh my God, I didn't know that." Every time I go to a clinic, I'd learn something, and I'd leave excited and couldn't wait to implement it. So it really rejuvenated me and made me excited to be a teacher and a coach again. And so I thank my daughter for tricking me into being the coach. And then she played 1 year and she changed high schools. So she didn't even play. She went to Lincoln Park, one of those, what are those high school called? I forget what they call them, a charter school. So she went to Lincoln Park Charter School and didn't even play after her freshman year. But I thank her all the time because it was a highlight of my teaching and coaching career, was coaching these girls.
Well, I've got a funny lacrosse story I got to share, because when I was a freshman at Slippery Rock, there was a guy on my dorm floor who was a football player, big defensive tackle, but he was just like I don't know, I don't even know how to describe this guy, but so there was lacrosse players on the floor. Now this guy was very, very strange. He would go around smelling things. Yeah. Why? I have no idea. He would go into like the rec area. He would scratch something and sniff it. And we were like, this guy, there's something wrong with him. So he kept going into these guys on my floor who played lacrosse, just walk into their room and start acting very strange. And they told him, they said, "Listen, dude, if you come back in the room again, I am going to take my lacrosse stick with this ball and throw it at you and hit you in the head." And I guess he refused to listen. And you know what a lacrosse ball feels like. I mean, they're hard as rocks. So sure enough, the guy goes back into their room and he picks up the stick and woof, shoots at this guy, hits him smack in the middle of the forehead. And he looks at the ball, picks it up, and smells it. and tosses it back to him. And we're like, okay, it's time to start locking doors. There's this guy
Yeah, right.
is out of his mind.
He's much. Wow.
Weird. Very
Yeah,
weird.
that's a little crazy there. Yeah, those
Yeah.
balls could kill you. That's like a rock hitting you.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
That's what I was like. I was like, how did he just take that? I'm like, it hit him right smack in the middle of the forehead. I was like, what? Oh, anyway. So I was gone a long time from North Hills by the time you became a teacher, but I'm just curious, what classes did you teach?
Well, the main class I taught were engineering classes. I taught second level engineering and architecture. I taught a class called transportation design, and I
Hmm.
taught classes in interior design field. So I did mostly the engineering and architecture classes at North Hills High School.
Oh, wow. What'd you major in college?
Technology
Gotcha.
education.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a step back now. Let's talk about 1987. That's the one and only time I'm aware of that our high school football team finished the season ranked number one in the country by USA Today. The team was 13-0 and coached by Jack McCurry, who you already mentioned. But more incredible about this team was that they outscored their opponents 435-20. I mean, that's ridiculous, a ridiculous set of numbers and unfathomable. But consider too that 11 of those 13 victories were shutouts, and the first team never surrendered a single point. This might be the greatest high school football team in history. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. No, I was in college during that time, but I'm a North Hills guy. I love North Hills kids. I love North Hills sports. So I would come back. If I had a chance, if we didn't have an away game that we were having to travel the night before and stay in a hotel, I would come back to the North Hills games and watch them. So I was able to watch several of those games, and I was at the championship game down at Three River Stadium, and that was one heck of a football team. Pat Carey, our current head coach, he was a member of that team. He was a running back and a safety on that team,
Wow.
and they were unbelievable. I think he told me they had 16 Division I football players on that team.
Holy crap. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. So you
But they
mentioned
were
Penn.
mean. I mean, they were nasty. They were
Yeah.
mean,
Uh-huh.
and they were. If you even got close to scoring on them, I mean, they would get upset and they wouldn't let you score. They get mad when people tried to kick a field goal just to
Wow.
eliminate a shutout.
Wow. They should have made Remember the Titans about North Hills High School in 1987.
They
That's
should
what it
have.
sounds
They
like.
definitely should have.
Well,
Yeah.
I heard you mention before Penn State, but here you are with a Penn State jersey on. So what's that all about?
Yeah, well, like growing up, I didn't, like I said before, I could care less Pitt, Penn State. I'd watch whatever's on TV. But as I got older, I became a Pitt fan. I lived in the city and start rooting for them and paying attention to them a little bit. And then my daughter, who got me involved in lacrosse, went to Penn State. And so my wife and I, we start going to the games. And you said about the 106,000 or whatever at Michigan. I think they
Yeah.
actually hold more than like 115. Penn
Wow.
State's 109, I know.
Wow.
And going to my first game, I remember my daughter's a freshman. It's the first game of the year, and I'm literally I start tearing up. I'm thinking, oh my God, she gets to enjoy this. She gets to go to this wonderful university and be involved in this the spirit and the camaraderie that the students have and the excitement and the pride that they have for the university and their
Hmm.
team. It's just unbelievable. And I sort of became a Penn State fan over the years. My wife and I would go to at least a couple games, a couple games a year. And even though she's been out of school 4 years now,
Uh-huh.
but it's fun. If you've never been to a Penn State game, you gotta attend one. It's one of a kind.
Yeah. Well, let's put the icing on the cake for your football and coaching career because this year you were inducted into the North Hills School District Sports Hall of Fame. I want to congratulate you on that. And you joined the previously mentioned Steve Fidel and our great coach Jack McCurry. But how's that honor feel for you, James, and what's that mean to you?
Well, Harv, that means the world to me, to be honest with you. I feel undeserving. I see people like Steve Fidel, LeVar Arrington, Coach
Hmm.
McCurry, Coach
Hmm.
Nauman, those types of people in the Hall of Fame. And then I think of myself, I don't think of
Hmm.
myself at the level they're at. But I'm going to keep my plaque. I'm not going to turn it back in. But I think to myself, you know what? It's a heck of an honor. I always prided myself in working hard. I always prided myself in showing up early, never missing. And I think that's the combination of my coaching and my teaching and my playing. I think all those things combined into me getting in. I don't think just my coaching would have got me in. I don't think just my playing would have got me in. I don't think just my teaching would have got me in, even though it's not, it's not an athletic event. But I think those three things combined is how I got in. And I was honored that Coach McCurry was the one that wanted to put me in. He asked, he told me about this time last year. He said, I'd like to nominate you and for the Hall of Fame. So for me, it sort of validates it. If a guy like him wants to put me in, then, I feel honored and I feel worthy of the honor. But deep down inside, I think, oh my goodness, I see some of these pictures on the wall up there and, I can't hold a candle to what some of these people have done, like Mark Kelso and some of these other people. But, I'm very proud of it, and it'll be up there for a long time, and hopefully my kids and grandkids can see it. And but it does make me proud, but I don't feel worthy, to be honest with you.
Well, you should feel worthy, James, because they wouldn't have put you in there if you didn't belong there. One interesting thing is that, and it's kind of a sad note. Steve and I talked about it the other day. I don't know if you knew Ed Krankovic or not, but we brought that name up because he's in and he was a year behind me, and we were talking about how tragic of an event it was that, when Ed Krankovic drowned while on vacation.
Yes.
He was such a great basketball player.
Right.
I remember like it was yesterday. It was such a dark day at North Hills because Ed was such a nice guy. But I wanted to bring that up because he's also in the poll. And the other interesting thing is when I got my directory this year, Jerry Yee was on the back cover, and I found out that Jerry Yee, who was in my class, great tennis player, became a fantastic doctor, also passed away this year. I was like, oh my God, it's just, what a shame.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the tennis player, but Ed Krankovic, I definitely have heard that name, and I remember that story and how sad it was. And I remember my two older sisters, being upset about that because they knew him, and that was horrible.
Yeah, he really truly was a great basketball player, a great guy. So I can't let you leave the show, Steve, James, without talking about Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, we're both diehard Steeler fans. Let's just talk about this year because all the buzz is about Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett. And I told Steve the other day when Pickett was being drafted, this buzz was that his hands were too small for the NFL. I said, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Well, what's your overall view of the Steelers right now this season? And the one question I asked Steve was, what's it going to take to get these guys back to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I don't know if we're close to the Super Bowl or not. I'm hoping, after this bye week that, they've been working on some things, and I listened a little bit to Coach Tomlin's show this afternoon, his Tuesday show he puts on, and some of the things they have in store for next week. But my take on it, being a coach, being an offensive coordinator for a few years, it's a tough position, and I feel bad for the guy. I really do. But when I do watch his offense, it does look very simplistic, and it does look very high schoolish, if that's a word. And I don't like to see anybody suffer. I don't like to see anybody booed. I don't care what level you are, whether you're a middle school coach or a professional coach. I feel for that. I look at that man, and he has a wife, he has kids, and he has maybe grandkids or nieces and nephews. So I feel for him. I'm sure he wants to score more points. And I don't know what the problem is. Looking at it, I think as an outsider, which I am, I think I can solve some of the problems. I look at some things I think he can do better. But do I really know what goes on behind the scenes? No. And that was some of the issues. I remember even coaching at the high school level. Everyone on the outside is an expert. But people really don't know what's going on in practice. People really don't know, if this person's injured or if this person's not doing their job or deserves to be in the lineup. So I listen to these talk shows. I've even called in a couple times on them. But I'm always viewing things as a coach. And I'm thinking, do we all really know what's going on? So
sure.
I'm hoping for the best. It doesn't irritate me like it used to when they lose. Back 10, 15, 20 years ago when they would lose, I'd be upset till Wednesday. Now it's over. Said I'm not getting any more money if they win or lose. What difference does it make for me? I let it roll off my back a little bit easier than I used to. But I don't know what the answer is. I like Coach Tomlin. I like listening to him. I think he's a good coach. Can they bring in somebody better, do a better job? I don't know. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert because I know I'm not. I just know we need to play better. We need to make more plays and just need a little bit more flow and continuity with our offense. And hopefully this guy will get it going. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah,
I really am because I hate to see anybody get on in a pile of flames.
Well, I've had this discussion, and Matt Canada obviously has got to take some of the blame, but one of the things in my discussions has been that you still have to execute. The players have to execute. Mm-hmm. So it's not always just about the play calling. Yeah. If the players don't play, you're not going to get success. And I really thought the team was going to be way better than they were last year, this year, and I still think they may turn it around. Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., those two guys, think they should start?
I do.
So do I.
Do. You make that type of investment. I've watched Joey Porter. We scrimmaged them. We scrimmaged North Allegheny in a 7-on-7, 5-6 years ago, whatever it was, and he was there, and he was a freak of an athlete.
Wow.
And I didn't know it was Joey Porter's son at the time until on the way home. Pat Carey told me that that's who it was. But you got to play those guys. You make this big investment in it. You put them on the field. Let them play out their mistakes, and so I think those two should be in there. Definitely.
Well, I listened to this other podcast, Locked On Steelers, with Chris Carter, and he said in this morning's podcast that he said he would be completely shocked if Broderick Jones does not start this Sunday. He said it would be a major mistake if Tomlin doesn't start him. And I think Joey Porter's already proved himself as well. I think the kid, and when they drafted him, oh my God, I was like, this is going to be awesome for the Steelers because the fans are going to love this guy just because his father played for the Steelers. So, so we'll see what happens with the Steelers, but I think they're going to do well. And you can't argue against victories. And Mike Tomlin, that's all he does is win. He hasn't had a losing season in 15 years. And every year he's been coach, he's been a winner. And by the way, I was lucky enough, I got to go to Super Bowl 43 down in Tampa.
Oh, wow.
So I had an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. I said, oh my gosh, I've got to get to a Super Bowl. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, when Roethlisberger threw that winning touchdown pass, I was at the other end of the stadium, so I didn't get to see it.
San Antonio was 43 the Cardinals. Was 43 the Cardinals?
Yeah, the Cardinals won. San Antonio Holmes.
So you got to see the 100-yard. Did you got to see the 100-yard James?
Yeah, that I got to see. I was jumping out of my seat on that one. But then when San Antonio Holmes caught that pass, I was at the other end of the stadium, so I had to see it on instant replay up on the Jumbotron. But to this day, that's one of the most amazing touchdown catches in a Super Bowl I've ever seen. The fact that he was able to keep his toes in bounds was just incredible. Well, as we close the show, James, tell our listeners what your plans are in retirement and any involvement you have with local Pittsburgh sports still. And do you have any children that became athletes? We already talked about your daughters.
Well, my daughter Carly. I have two children, Carly and Kara. Carly is 25 and Kara is 30. Kara was a high school swimmer. She was a gymnast. Got hurt, went into swimming, swam all through high school and swam in college. She went to school for architecture and come out, and she is a practicing interior designer in the North Hills. And my daughter Carly played lacrosse up until 9th grade. She's a very talented actress and theater arts kid at Lincoln Park High School. Went to Penn State. And she got her teaching degree, and she teaches first grade in Charleston School District down in Charleston, South Carolina. And then my wife, Beth, she was in the flag line at North Hills.
Oh, wow.
We met in 9th grade. We've been together ever since. And she is a school nurse out at Pine Richland School District.
Outstanding.
And my plans for retirement, This summer, I got my school bus driver's license.
Oh,
I've always, on all these trips I've ever gone on, the football, lacrosse, field trips, I've always enjoyed talking to the bus drivers. I always thought they were the most interesting people. They always seemed like they had some type of backstory about them. And I said, you know what, I think it'll be fun to be a bus driver. So I talked to the company, ABC Bus, and it seemed like it would take 3 days to get my bus driver's license. So I got into it, and it took me the entire summer. I can't imagine getting your pilot's license would be more difficult than what I went through this summer to get my bus driver's license. It was 3 weeks in the classroom and then 2 weeks actually driving the bus. And then finally you have to go up to the DMV, take 4 tests on a computer, and then go out for an hour and a half and do a driving test. So it was very in-depth. And if I'd have known how in-depth it was, I wouldn't have done it.
yeah.
But I have my bus driver's license now, and I drive all these sports teams around. And
Oh, wow.
I've seen the girls volleyball team. I've seen the middle school cross country team. I've seen the middle school soccer, boys and girls, A and B team. And today I took the kids up to a field trip at Beechwood Farms and Camp Guyasuta. So I'm getting to do all these things that I would never get to do, and it's sort of fun being a bus driver.
Yeah.
I'm not driving regular routes. I'm only doing, extracurricular things.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I can't wait to drive my girls' lacrosse team to their first game.
Uh-huh.
And it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I still run the engineering club at the high school.
Oh, cool.
I have a club that I started in 2000. I brought them to Falling Water. I got to drive the bus
Oh,
to
nice.
Falling Waters.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. And I watch my granddaughter, and
Uh-huh.
that's about it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I had thought about doing a bus driver thing once before as well. And then there was a period where I was out in the corporate world here and I was looking for jobs, and I thought about being a FedEx driver. And so I thought I was going to be driving one of these little FedEx vehicles around. And instead they train you in one of these 50-foot trucks. And I got in that thing.
Yeah.
I was like, trying to reverse that and everything else. I was like, no, not for me. Well, I'd like to thank James. Oh, by the way, too, I was going to mention, you can tell your daughters they may know Kevin Glavin or not, but he's a famous opera singer in Pittsburgh.
Well, I just saw Kevin. My wife and I just had dinner at Severino's 2 weeks ago.
Are you
And
serious?
Kevin was there, and he came up to me,
Oh my gosh.
and he said, "Are you John Cassandro?" I said, "No, that's my brother." So we start talking, and he congratulated me for going into the Hall
Wow.
of Fame. He must have heard
Uh-huh.
it somewhere. But we sat and talked. Myself, and my wife, we sat and talked for a half hour. Yeah, and he's friends with my
that's-
sister Lisa, who you graduated with.
Well, that's small world
Yeah.
because Kevin's brother Mike and I are best friends. We're best friends. I haven't talked to him in a few
Oh,
years
wow.
now, but
Yeah.
Kevin, I know Kevin very well, and I followed his career as well because he's a fantastic opera singer. So that's kind of neat. What a small world. So next time you talk to him, if
Yeah.
you do, you tell him Harv said hello. He'll be like, "What? You
I
talk
will.
to Harv Aronson?"
I will.
So, that'll come as a nice surprise to him. Well, I'd like to thank James Cassandro for joining Total Sports Recall as a guest, and it's always an honor to have a fellow graduate of North Hills High School on the show. Just like many athletes before and after you, James, you've made the school proud with your accomplishments. You're always welcome to be a guest on this show. And with that said, I'll give you a chance to have any parting words.
Nope, thank you, Harv. I enjoyed it. This is my first podcast, and I look forward to
great.
listening to some of your other North Hills podcasts. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, for Total Sports Recall, this is your host, Harv Aronson, and next week there will be yet another episode of the show. Several sports people have been booked for interviews for the show. An announcement for those can be found on my Twitter page using my handle at TSRHarv59. You may also reach me with any comments or suggestions by email to totalsportsrecall@gmail.com. Be sure to visit my YouTube channel, Total Sports Recall, and my website, www.totalsportsrecall.com. For James Cassandro, this is Harv Aronson, wishing everyone a wonderful week ahead. In tribute to James's college alma mater, I present the University of California, Pennsylvania Marching Band with the school fight song.
The contents of this podcast does not represent the opinions of others and is solely the opinions of Harv Aronson based on his experience, knowledge, and research.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Hello, football friends. This is Darren Hayes of the Pigskin Dispatch podcast, and I'd like to invite you to the portal of positive football history, Pigskin Dispatch and pigskindispatch.com. We talk about everything that centers around the game of American football, expert discussions, the origins of the games, the great players, teams, and coaches, and more, and some great guests and insights from experts. We have new episodes 3 to 4 times a week, and you can find us on sportshistorynetwork.com, pigskindispatch.com, or your favorite podcast provider.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.